I have Melina to thank for this. I needed to remember that today has been Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. You wanted to say something, Melina, for the mothers out there?
No, I'd like to say happy Mother's Day to my mother, my mother-in-law, and all the mothers out there and women who play motherly roles.
Okay, I should say happy Mother's Day to my mother. Sent her a message in the morning. Morrison, you say something about Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day, my mom out there.
And Chris?
I don't celebrate symbols. There's nothing Mother's Day in Uganda.
Okay.
Mothers are suffering yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
And possibly 16 died today trying to
So,
bring new lives.
We'll come to that.
Huh? Yes.
Symbolically, maybe, but
Let's switch the discussion.
Before
I
you
will
switch.
provide an opportunity to Morrison to make his point, his last point. I know the portion of your paper that you're looking at and the concerns about the health of NSSF.
Yeah.
You know that they're writing off losses, some of the companies listed in the stock
Yeah,
market.
absolutely. And
But
that's
just
why,
a quick one.
that-
Okay.
that's why I mentioned that in spite of the problems in Simbe, Temangaro, and Uganda clays, a 2013 actuarial valuation, you see, by MS Cullen, which is an actuarial firm in the UK, actually confirmed that the NSSF is healthy and it is fully funded.
I have seen a report by an economist that says NSSF could actually be technically insolvent.
It's,
If
that's very wrong.
If you
That's
take
very
away
wrong.
their fixed assets and the cash at hand and factor in if a large number of people put in claims and wanted to remove their money, you'd find there isn't.
No, but that cannot happen.
Okay.
Because NSSF
Can we,
collects
gentlemen
50
and
billion.
lady, can we
But
switch
it's 50
discussions?
billion per month.
Chris, I'm not going to allow you
want
to
to
go
work
into
in
this.
NSSF.
We are going to consider another topic, which is the latest report by Uwezo, a regional policy research organization that follows education trends across the East African region, released a report this week. And I was having a chat with the Minister for Education, and she said, I've been reading the media for the last 2 days with a lot of pain. And I asked, is it because of the reporting or the details of the report? And we didn't get further into that discussion because the results for a third year running look grim. The 2013 report plots learning trends over the last 3 years with disappointing findings. Learn achievement in these basic tests have remained constant across East Africa with slight changes in numeracy in Tanzania. Uganda still falls at the bottom. And Melina, let me start with you on this. When you look at these latest results and you look at the listing of the performance of districts across the East African region, where are we as a country, especially in one that is moving into a political union with the rest of the East Africans and a globally so competitive world?
Well, there's no way you can read this any other way other than to say that the education sector is in an extremely bad state. So as you just mentioned, in this report, they have studied Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. And I think it's important to understand how they did these tests. I think some people are skeptical of some research, some reports, and I think it's important to understand how they came to these conclusions. And Morrison, who's previously worked with Twaweza, which is kind of the parent organization, is also very familiar with this. But essentially, this is a study done at the level of households. So essentially, the research team goes out, they go to people's homes, approximately 600 to 1,000 in each district. So it has very wide coverage. They go to every district, and the information they collect means that it is representative of the district. And what they do is they test children in reading, in English. In Tanzania and Kenya, they also test in Swahili, but not here. In English, in reading, and in numeracy. And you find that in the ranking of the districts in this report, you find that if I can't remember how many pages it is, but it's about 8 pages or so of districts. The first page is about 90% districts within Kenya, with a few from Tanzania scattered around.
The list is actually here
I
from
think it's
page 15. Yes,
Further
ahead.
Further ahead. Anyway, the second page then has more of Kenya, a few more of Tanzania. Then somewhere towards the middle, you have mostly Tanzania with a smattering. Then you see Kampala feature.
This is the list. I
Yes,
think.
there you have it. Now, when you finally get to the last page, the very bottom of the list, that's where you see most of Uganda's districts ranking in the very lowest. Now, within Uganda, you see performance higher in Kampala, in the central region, and in western. And performance tends to be worse in the Karamoja region and in the eastern region, Kamuli, some districts in the eastern region. So these are very worrying trends. It's worrying both because comparatively in the region, Uganda is performing very poorly. Only 44% of children who are tested, who are between the ages of 10 and 17 years old, only 44% of them passed a numeracy test. And this is things like you show them a piece of paper with the number 5, and you ask them what number is this? Then basic addition, things like that. And only 47% passed the literacy test. Whereas in Kenya and Tanzania, the majority, between about 55 and 68% of kids pass this test. So we're doing poorly comparatively. Then the other thing is, if you look over time across these 3 surveys, we're basically stagnant. So performance is the same, more or less the same across the 3 countries, across the 3 studies.
Morrison, you worked with Uwezo, so you set up part of this methodology that Uwezo uses to assess, to do the assessments. But the government you work for has been prizing itself for enrolling children in universal primary education, universal secondary education, universal tertiary education, and we've been all over the place drumming our performance at university education, saying, you see, when we came in, we had only 1 university, now we have 28, 30 universities, children are going to school. But actually they're going to school and they're not doing any learning. You find this in the marketplace where you go to recruit people, because UP has been around to send its first graduates to somewhere where they can find a job, and they can't work. And you look at these numbers, where are we going as a country, especially if you put this in our Vision 2040?
You see, Charles, I think Marina mentioned something very interesting at the end, that across the region, you know, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, where these tests have been going on, there seems to be some, you know, no change. Nothing is changing in terms of, you know, improvements in proficiency and improvements in numeracy for the kids that have been tested. So I think at the regional level, there is a need for a conversation on how to translate schooling into learning. Because I think the misnomer even emerges from the global standard which was set by the UN Millennium Development Goals, you know, with Kofi Annan, that focused very much on how do we get kids who, you know, from being house girls, you know, from childhood labor, to get them into the school. So the focus was on schooling, and that's why you saw a lot of enrollment but you know, in Uganda and across the region. But for me now, the focus of the government of Uganda now is that we have these kids in schools, okay? Now the focus should be,
but you know, Morrison,
the focus should be on learning.
You know,
but we also know, just a moment.
You know,
we also know that
in
spite,
can I cut in here? You know as well as I do that even this idea that the children are in school is a grand deception. You're losing 75% of the kids who enroll in primary 1 don't reach primary 7.
No,
so
I mean,
they actually not even in school, and those who are in school are performing as miserably as
you're focusing on the other side, but I'm telling you that I know doctors, I know lawyers, I know high performers who have gone through UPE. So certainly universal primary education has provided opportunity for some people who may not have gotten that opportunity. But that doesn't take away the fact that there are problems, you see, within the UPE. And what this report tells us is that we've had more schooling and less learning, and we have focused on building nice, you know, buildings, and we don't care so much on what happens inside those buildings. And then for me, that's a problem. So the ministries of education across the entire region, across East Africa, should engage into a honest reflection about what do we need to do about learning. And I think in Uganda specifically, I want to propose that there should be sort of an inquiry, a commission of inquiry into UPE, into young children performance. Because if you look at teachers' absence or presence in schools, first wait.
Why didn't you need a commission of inquiry?
Because these ones
are telling you
these ones
there is no learning taking place in
yes,
the
we
schools.
need to know why. Because some of the reasons have been teachers at schools, you see, or teachers are actually absent in markets and they are not teaching children.
Last year,
but now, this report tells us that teachers, actually in Uganda, the highest number of teachers are present in schools and teaching, but children are not learning. So we need to know.
Can I give you another statistic?
We need to know why.
In November last year, the World Bank released a report, the SDI survey across East Africa, social service delivery indicator report across the East African region. And its results were even grimmer. Teachers did not know their curriculum. They couldn't even teach. They couldn't even pass what they're supposed to be teaching.
I think now we need,
and then they found
now we need a survey on the teachers. Actually, give them the same tests.
That's
Teachers who teach in P7 to
That's
do the
what they
same
did.
test. And I can tell you, most teachers would fail. Do you see? So
That's
for
correct.
me,
You're
and this is across East Africa.
Chris kept emphasizing.
This is across East
Chris
Africa,
kept
by the way.
emphasizing that.
But there are some statistics that you haven't looked at in terms of literacy across the region. Uganda's literacy rates are actually around 60% compared to Kenya at 53,
Morrison,
Rwanda at 43,
Morrison, I think-
and
I think
Burundi
it
at
would be-
30.
I think
So
it would be-
comparatively,
it would be
in terms
grossly-
of literacy, you need to know this, and
It
the
would be
viewers need to know
grossly
it,
unfair to the people watching us
that in terms of
to go with the
literacy, we're at
government,
60%.
rhetoric with comparing ourselves with the region
What do you call
on
rhetoric?
where we
I am
have
giving you
on
facts.
where we have failed, instead of comparing ourselves on where we are succeeding.
No.
Chris, I need you to come
I
into
am
this.
saying here we succeeded. We have 60% of literacy.
No, Chris-
This is the latest World Bank report.
And those are adults.
Oh yeah, for
So this
adults,
is the
yeah.
difference we're looking at.
Chris,
What are children
when-
learning
when
now
you look
versus
at-
adults?
Reports like this. I'm looking at this list here. And this list, like Melina said, you run through the the top.
Yeah.
You run up to about 160, 190. You haven't seen Uganda anywhere, a district being ranked in Uganda. Then you have, you find some Tanzania, then you find a lot of Kenya, and then you go down south to the bottom performers, and Uganda is dominant all through the bottom. And we have been saying kids are running from the region to come and study here because we have a better education. We have UPE, we have been touting it as if UPE only exists in Uganda. And this report is telling us, yes, you have UPE. You're spending a lot of money on UPE, but you're not delivering on your core promise to teach Ugandan children. And this report does not only look at UPE children, it is looking at children outside of UPE. Where is Uganda's competitiveness in the next 10, 20, 30 years if this is what you're giving to children in school?
I think let me leave that, since I have Melina here, who's grounded on the policy issues and basically research methodologies. She can able guide us on the authenticity of the report. But I want to say there is actually nothing new that the report is presenting to us. It is re-echoing what we have said year in, year out. So what should then be the way forward? And we keep talking like, a government exists to listen. But I've told you, the other day I was talking to Dr. Fred and Dr. Kerej, and we say even government seems to be needs to be rescued. Because even government is held hostage. So the first thing that people of Uganda needed to do is rescue government from the hostages. Who could be?
Who are the hostage takers?
There are so many. These are the ones masquerading to throw things around. Some of them may be taking coffee with my brother here all the time. So, because every time Ugandans speak, if government existed and government knew it's a duty bearer, this would not be the same song today. But the government is not bothered. So, ideally, I want Ugandans to begin to emphasize to study the political economy of Uganda first. Understand it. Why is our economy the way it is? And who partakes from our economy? Because every other day I hear of highly placed public officials in politics, in the government ministries, some now even in NGO world, flying for graduation ceremonies in Edinburgh, Harvard, New York. The other day somebody big in the KCC was having a graduation in New York. A daughter is graduating. You think those people can care about whether you guys know to read figure 5? And I remember telling you, the purpose of UPE, while Kofi Annan thought having children in school is a good idea, Kofi Annan did not know what is the definition of a school in Uganda's context. First of all, did we know what a school is? So that we send children there. So there were no schools to send the children to. The teachers have been abused. Every government servant is not motivated. And you are telling children, go to those people. No wonder the only good news, in the quotes, is a girl impregnated by headmaster. The other one raped by this. This is the kind of news you are getting from a school system, which never used to be there. I'm avoiding to come into what we can do.
Can we, whether you have educated your child at Harvard or at Stanford or in Edinburgh or wherever you have educated your child, can we as a country afford to discuss these grim statistics with detachment?
But when you talk about, again, that's what I'm saying, we need to study a political economy of this country. When we talk about we as a country, we are talking about who and who. The country is already being segmented. There is a class creation that, no wonder when Melina is speaking, at the region, Uganda is doing badly. When you come to Uganda itself, you begin to see Kabong is doing worse than. Then you see comes to Soroti, comes to Nebi, comes to where money is, there seems to be literacy rebels. Where poverty is, then you see this. That's what I'm saying. Are we studying the political economy of this country in the first place? When you talk about we are not homogeneous. Those actually who designed UPE the way it is have a reason why it is designed that way. And the reason is, while they will get experts from California, where Melina's been privileged to study, Obore will be sent to mountains of the moon in the Fort Portal.
Mountains of the Moon is actually a good university.
And remember, the person who is going to sit at the vetting committee is from Harvard University. Then they say, present CVs. They say, on the score of strength of paper alone, Mountains of the Moon, sorry. There's no opportunity for you. Because the inputs, listen, Charles, the inputs into education were not taken care of. The same problems in UPE are in the health sector. And tell me, Charles, I said yesterday again, in Uganda, if you want to know that the government of NRM has served you hot air in and out. In fact, when you are sitting with one of them, tell them you are serving hot air.
They are watching you.
If anybody sit next to them now, tell them you are serving hot air and nothing else. You realize the presence of a state. We began from welfare, from the frontline service provision.
Okay.
Listen, all these Charles. You look at, if you are talking about a service in education, what is the state of a school? If it is health, what is the state of a hospital? If it is justice, what is the state of a lower court, grade 1? If it is justice, what is the state of a policeman on the street in Uganda? Give me the answer.
Okay.
Can I tell you?
Morrison, you can come in for 1.5 minutes, and then we need to keep 3 minutes for Melina.
Let him give me the answer.
But this man has taken like 10 minutes.
Give me the answer to
Let
those
me tell you,
questions.
you see, the good thing about the NRM government is that it learns.
So-
So when we see a report like this, it's time to go back into reflection and ask the question why. You see,
You know, when this report was being
and
launched,
no.
there was only
Let me
one
tell you,
bigger level official from the
I had
government.
received this report even
Yes.
before. You know, I worked for Twaweza and set up the methodology. But I also need to tell you that also what this report teaches us is that parents out there, education, yes, government has got a law, but parents also has a law. It shows that less than 7% of the parents in this country in a particular term visit their children. And when they visit their children, who ask, how is my child performing? Do you see? So for me, parents out there who are watching us, you need to again learn that the education of children, you have got a huge responsibility. Do you see? So 7% only visit their children. And less than that, ask the question, is my child actually performing well in mathematics?
There is a crisis around Kampala when it is
so you see what I'm telling you. So it is very convenient to blame government, but I'm telling you that parents out there who have children in schools across this country, you also need to engage with the education sector.
Melina,
do you see?
Yes.
Yeah.
Melina, when you look at these statistics, in such a competitive global economy, I would imagine that there should be crisis meetings within government at interministerial level and at the highest level possible to say we have a crisis on our hands and we need to address it. But every political actor keeps touting, we have UPE, we have extended to USE, now we have gone to post-secondary education. We are getting children in school. But if you're putting this out, how do you achieve Vision 2040? Who actualizes it?
Yeah, well, I would hope there'd be crisis meetings. I don't know if there will be. There's two issues. One is that people who can afford to pay for private education or even education, as Chris was saying, in New York or somewhere else, will definitely do so if they have the means to pay. The second thing is but there are very many people, in fact, most people are not able to do that. And those are the ones who, as government, you would be worried that people would be, upset with government about the poor quality of education. And I think the reason there's been a major focus, as we've said, on inputs, on school infrastructure, on teachers, on things that are visible, on eliminating school fees. And these are the kinds of things that are very visible to the public. And they're good for government because it's something that you can show. You can point to a school visibly, you can point to teachers. People can feel that they're not paying school fees anymore, and that kind of, it reduces the pressure on government. Like Morrison said, I think it's a very big problem that parents are very likely unaware of their students' performance. So I'm not sure where he got that particular figure, but there's other studies that have found that parents vastly overestimate their children's achievement. So they think that they're doing much better in school than they're actually doing. And so if you have a wrong impression of how well your child's doing, maybe you won't be checking on them as frequently as you should, or maybe you won't be asking them, to show you what they've learned. For example, you do need that parent involvement, but the other side of it is that the things that are politically work in terms of the politics for government are things that are very visible to people. Learning is not very visible unless you have a parent who's very engaged. So unless you're doing a report like this and making it very, very public, it's not nearly as visible as saying we're building 200 new schools in, in
They have actually put some impressive structures in some areas.
I told you why I didn't want to go to those things. Melina is able to do that. But much as we recognize the role of a parent in the education of a child, it will be so escapist and so NRM-like to try to blame a parent for the failure of a child to recognize letter 5, or letter L of figure 5. The same government told the parent, don't even give a child food. We have taken care of your children's education.
But parents cannot afford.
You see, Charles, before you escape to blame a child, a parent, the state, which in my view is supposed to be a duty bearer, has told this parent who has been finding problems paying school fees that we're educating the child. Food, don't mind, we're taking care of that. Much as a parent, first of all, even the parents are not homogeneous. We are talking about the most vulnerable of parents, who even getting a meal a day is a problem. Now, government has offered them a kind of relief that, bring the child to school, don't worry about this.
Can we discuss, can we pick that up after short
The state as we see it today, the NRM state, let me tell you, does not exist for the most vulnerable of Ugandans.
Gentlemen and lady, can we pick that up after short commercial break? Because one of the things I've seen is parents, especially those getting into the middle class, elite parents, are so excited about the performance of their children. You say, are you reading with your children? Are you asking? I meet a lot of, especially single parents, and they're excited about the results posted by their children. But these results seem to paint a different picture. That do these young parents know actually what their children should be getting? And how concerned are they? How engaged are they? They cannot be completely absolved of responsibility. Let's pick this up after a short break.